We ready?
You guys ready? Everyone ready?
Right.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Devlin. I'm the Director of Public Relations and Policy for Historic Sites and Shipwrecks. Before we begin this morning, we'd like to take a moment to thank the Bahamian government and the Marriott, Nassau Resort and Crystal Palace Casino for their hospitality here this weekend. We'd also like to take a moment to thank some of our sponsors, who include Barnett Bank, Delta Airlines, the Graves Museum of Archaeology and Natural History, Omni Business Systems, Paradise Island Airways, and WTDT Television, who will be producing our docudrama later on in the future. In the presentation that we'll be making to you today, we're going to tell you a little bit about historic sites and shipwrecks and explain some of this cargo that's here in front of us. This is Mr. Nick Malis. He's our Bahamian director of our project over here, and he will answer any questions that you have at a later time. But a little bit about historic sites and shipwrecks. We're a nonprofit Florida corporation incorporated for the purpose of researching, locating, recovering, and restoring, and the displaying of important artifacts of historical interest. Our program, after meeting with some people of the judicial systems and the Board of Education, we've decided that we need to resolve the problems with youthful offenders in our society, and we at Historic Sites and Shipwrecks are implementing programs to rehabilitate, educate, and train them aboard research vessels and assist them by changing the direction of their lives. We propose to take groups of children aboard ship, get them involved in the exciting and challenging day-to-day operations aboard these research and recovery vessels. We also have several projects that we're currently working on, including Project North Star in Colorado, the Haitian excavation project outside of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. We're doing that with our affiliate, the Graves Museum. We're also working on the Swanee River project, just to name a few. Basically, we're going to teach these children the computerized location of sites, the identification and the recovery of the artifacts from these historic sites that we find. As funding becomes available to us, there will be numerous opportunities that will open up to these children. Accredited courses will be offered in deep sea diving, underwater photography, scuba diving, underwater mapping, archaeology, antiquities, and the like. We at HSS feel that if we can remove the children from the bad situations in their lives, that we can greatly affect their lives in the future by giving them new direction and promise. The children of our communities are our responsibility, and we must do everything we can to stop the merry-go-round of violence. We hope that as we get our programs implemented and underway, that we can return here to the Bahamas and work with your government to implement similar problems here in the area. The children are our future, and if we join together, we can make a difference in their lives, because the worst crime is doing nothing at all. Take these. A little bit about the American brig Baltic. This was an American general merchant ship. She was a wooden, two-masted vessel with a brigantine rig. Her measurements were 108 feet in length, 26.11 inches in width, 10 feet 2 inches in depth, and had an 11.5 draft. She contained one deck, a half poop, mixed woods, iron fastenings, iron knees, added keelsons, and was metalled in 1863. She weighed 281 tons and was built in Camden, Maine in 1854. The new captain who replaced Mr. Sawyer was John Maddox. Her consignors were Tupper and Beatty. Her owner, William Hooper of Camden, Maine. During the time span of 1854 through 1866, the Baltic traveled between France, Germany, and other European ports and back to New York. Her coastal license was picked up in New York, as she had already had her R license, and she proceeded to trade in Jacksonville, Florida, Nassau, Bahamas, and Galveston, Texas. On September 17, 1866, the Baltic cleared New York customs bound for Galveston, Texas, with a large cargo of French, English, German, and Scottish dinnerware, as well as medicine, foodstuffs, wine, whiskey, beer, window glass, a sawmill, and numerous other items as loaded in New York. Her route took her via the Bahamas to avoid the north-flowing Gulf Stream. She headed for the northeast Providence Channel. Caught in the Great Bahamian Hurricane on October 1st, 1886, she floundered and sunk off the reef of Eleuthera, Bahamas. The Baltic's log at 7 a.m. that day stated that they were at latitude 26, longitude 76.15. Winds were blowing heavy, increasing to hurricane forces from the north-northeast. The Baltic struck the reef between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m. Recognizing impending peril, it assumed that her master, John Maddox, headed her toward the beach for the lee of the reef, where she dropped anchor and swung into the wind. She was 200 yards off the beach at Ridley's Head in North Eleuthera. With the impact of hurricane-force winds at her, her cargo shifted to one side and she began taking on water. The entire crew managed to get safely to shore, and a portion of the upper deck was salvaged and saved. The sea swept away the poop deck and tore a hole in the top deck of the bow. She was battered by heavy seas as the hurricane raged on for 4 days. Eventually, sand filled her hull, and she sank slowly and soon was buried in the sand to the point where she was unsalvageable. She remained concealed for 126 years. A portion of her upper deck was occasionally seen by boaters in the area off of Spanish Wales and Harbor Island. Local elders remember rumors of a shipwreck that contaminated fish in the general area, and with the available evidence, Mr. Nick Malis, who is a native Bahamian and our Bahamian project director, obtained a lease from the government and began research in the summer of 1992. Modern equipment made it possible to move the sand to reveal a well-preserved, almost fully intact ship. The ship was identified by a crate with the ship's name on it. The date was confirmed by a barrel of salted mackerel. The barrel stated Gloucester, Massachusetts, number 3 mackerel, W. Sayward, 1866. Many of the crates contained straw, and as such, the cargo was still intact. The cargo consisted of general merchandise for that area. Some of the more interesting pieces are on display here. Silver cruet sets, Staffordshire china, apparently from the 1840 to 1850 area, and produced by W. Adams, Jacob Furnable, Hughes and Bennett, and John Maddox were on board. All of the English Staffordshire, as well as German, French, and Scottish china, religious figurines, snuff bottles, porcelain inkwells, lattice baskets, and vases were found also on board. Some 20,000 items have been recovered from the Baltic, and they have been preserved to date. A portion of this cargo will be displayed at the Graves Museum of Archaeology and Natural History. They're located at 481 South Federal Highway in Dania, Florida. We will be holding a private showing of this cargo on Friday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. in the evening. The balance of the cargo we anticipate going after in late spring of 1966. And if you need further information and need to keep in touch with us as we proceed with our project, if you give us your cards and information on faxes and things, we will fax you as we go. If you have any questions, Mr. Malis will be glad to help you with those. Thank you.
Thank you.